Great. Awesome. Well, Andre, Magnus, Felipe, thank you again for joining this panel. Just as an introduction, my name is Mo Barhoush. I'm a director at IAC in the M&A and investments team. IAC is a publicly traded consumer internet holding company. We spend most of our time investing in and acquiring consumer internet marketplaces. Some companies we've owned in the past are Expedia, in travel, Ticketmaster, in ticketing, and LendingTree and consumer loans. Today, we will kind of dig into consumer internet marketplaces with three entrepreneurs who have built really incredible marketplaces across the globe. As a kind of quick introduction, consumer internet marketplaces or marketplace businesses in general are platforms that connect fragmented supply and demand, and when doing so can create a 10 times better experience for consumers, and when done really right can create millions of jobs on the back end to service that consumer demand. So again, today I am super excited and grateful and humbled to speak to three entrepreneurs who have built some of the most disruptive and successful marketplaces across the globe in three different continents. So I think between Andre and Magnus and Felipe, their brands are active in over 4 continents, or in 4 continents, over 50 countries, and have together generated over $7 billion in company value. So with that brief introduction, I will turn it over to each of you to do an introduction on yourselves, as well as a brief overview of the businesses you have built. Andre, would you like to start?
Sure, happy to. Thanks, Mo. Good to see you all, and welcome to this panel. Excited to be here. Delighted to tell you a little bit more about myself and about Tiro, the company that I've been building for the last 10 years. So I was originally from Lebanon. I grew up in Beirut, left Beirut because of the war in 1989, and have had a sort of a refugee and immigration experience for 20 years, first in Europe and then in the US. Started around 10 years ago. Turo is the pioneering car sharing marketplace. So we connect car owners who are interested in turning their cars into an earnings engine to travelers who are looking for cars. And we've pioneered this model here in the US. I'm based in San Francisco. We've expanded to Canada and to the UK over the last few years. We've been delighted to partner with IAC, who's been one of our biggest supporters and largest investors since 2019. And we've been delighted to collaborate with Mo and his team as we think about all the strategic priorities for the business over the next many years. Just a couple words about Turo. We are all about enabling the world's car owners to put their cars to better use. Both, I'm sure Magnus and Felipe will confirm, cars are incredibly underutilized, no matter what country you're based in, no matter what city you live in. Certainly in the US, where we have almost 300 million cars, they're dramatically underutilized. And Turo is all about enabling better utilization and creating a lot of economic value from putting these cars to better use. We've been building the business for the last 10 years, and we're super excited to this continues to be a novel idea, really, but bring this idea to more and more people here in the US and around the world.
I'll continue.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Felipe Villamarin. I'm a co-founder in Rappi's super app in Latam. We describe ourselves as saving people time, but you can also think of us as Instacart plus DoorDash plus Wish plus travel plus payments, everything. We started this journey 6 years ago, very humbly listening to users and like venturing into new verticals and improving the quality of life of everywhere that we go. And not only for users, but for small business owners, restaurants, retailers, and couriers. So, and we're present in 9 countries in LATAM, and yeah, that's it.
Awesome. So, hey everyone, I'm Magnus. Super nice to see you, and thanks for having me on the panel. Big honor and big supporter of Techwadi. I'm one of the co-founders of Careem. We started back in 2012, so about 9 years ago. And the whole idea behind Careem was to do something purposeful and meaningful with our lives. And the purpose of Careem is to simplify people's lives in the region and to build an awesome organization that can inspire, because we feel, there's a lot that we need to do for the region, both in terms of simplifying people's lives, but also in terms of inspiring others to go and simplify more lives. When we started, we were a corporate car booking service, so a web-based platform where companies could book a car to take them from A to B. But pretty quickly, we went sort of consumer-focused, and we started scaling. And as a ride-hailing business. And then over the last 2 years, we have been transforming ourselves into the leading super app of the broader Middle East. So we're basically operating in 13 countries. We have more than 1.5 million captains on the platform that are basically earning a living on the platform, and close to 50 million users. And again, today we offer multiple services, including, of course, transportation services, but also logistics, food delivery, shopping, payment services to customers in the region. Very excited to be in the panel and talk about marketplaces.
Awesome. I think before kind of digging into marketplaces, it would be great to level set and understand why each of you, chose to become entrepreneurs. And when doing so, why you also chose to pursue the industries and companies that you ultimately did. Magnus, would you like to start? Or Andre? Go for it.
Oh, no worries. I thought we were going to continue. But I'm happy to see the mic to Magnus, of course, if he wants to start.
Let's do it. So in my case, or in our case, it's quite simple. So 10 years ago, I had a brain bleeding and almost died. And luckily, alhamdulillah, I survived. And when you get a second chance in life, you realize that life is not about survival, something meaningful with the time we have here. So together with my co-founder, Mudassir, we started looking for what can be meaningful, but at the same time big. Because if you're going to do something with your life, something meaningful, let's do something big and meaningful. Let's not waste your time. So we started looking at what's big and meaningful. We looked at education, we looked at healthcare, we looked at many different things. And in the end, we realized that transportation can actually be very meaningful. And that's why we called Careem Careem. Obviously, Careem means generous in Arabic. The notion from the beginning was we wanted to be Careem to our customers, to our captains, to our colleagues, and to our communities where we operate. And yeah, that's our journey. We didn't necessarily care about transportation at all. And hence it feels amazing today that we are actually a super app, because our purpose to simplify lives of people is really sort of the purpose of the app. So finally, 9 years later, our purpose of the organization is becoming the same purpose as the app. So it's pretty cool.
I'll take second. I think for us also simple. I think the most difficult thing in entrepreneurship is to start. So we just started as a project. We did software for big retailers in the world. So we had this platform where it was easy to shop just by dragging products down in a tablet. So we have like even a patent for that of our mother company called Gravity. So we were frustrated a little bit with the logistics of retailers, but we had the best shopping experience in the world, in our view. So we said, why don't we create the best logistics for that shopping experience, and let's just do an experiment in a neighborhood in Bogota, in Colombia. And this project then launched in Mexico and in other 9 countries, and here we are 6 years later. We were really, I think we were really lucky that when we started Rappi, we had this feature which customers could order anything. So as like in a sense, our DNA was that we could deliver anything from day one. So in a sense, we like, people always say like Rappi has got into too many verticals, but I always say like, no, it's the opposite. We're simplifying what we already had since day one, which was all of the verticals. So I think that's our story, and it's through that ear to our users of them ordering. Like we started at 500 like SKU mom and pop shop. Then we saw users order from restaurants that didn't have delivery. Then we saw like paragraphs in text of whole grocery orders. So we added shoppers. We saw users order cash on delivery. So we're like, okay, like how should that work? But the order was delivered. Let's just put an ATM UI and let's users order cash. It's one of our most favorite verticals of power users. I think that's our story. Like, be really humble, listen to your users, and add what the market really needs, and not what you think is important to add from your office, I guess.
Amazing story. My personal journey started in entrepreneurship started many years ago, back when I had a lot more hair than I have today, in the late 1990s. I was based in Paris back then, and as I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Beirut. Unfortunately, I had to leave Beirut because of the war. Our house was bombed in June 1989, and one of my bosses at that moment was my which was my pride and joy. My adolescent years, I was, a radio DJ at that time, and had just a real love affair with music. And the loss of my music collection was with me for many years, and I didn't actually. I didn't go back to music for almost 10 years. And then in the late 1990s, I decided to rebuild my music collection. And I'd always been a computer kind of geek. Had internet connection back in 1998 at home, back in the era of the 28K modems. Many of the folks in the audience, I'm sure, don't even know what I'm talking about. And I had a computer at home, and I was looking to rebuild my music collection, and I stumbled upon eBay, and it was think about it as very early days of the internet, back when a lot of things that we take for granted today just did not exist. Things like fast download speed, or mobile, or online payments, or fast shipping. All the things that certainly in the US I know we take for granted today did not exist. That infrastructure did not exist back then. And so I discovered eBay, and having found a lot of the music that I loved, decided to send my first money order check from France to my seller based in the US. And to my surprise and delight, I received a bunch of CDs in a big box later on. And that's how I got started, really realizing you know, these platforms can actually really have a big impact in people's lives, because for me, it was a deeply personal reconnection with music. Now, I was accumulating all these boxes of music, but I would usually like 10 to 20% of the music that I bought. And then the rest was there, and it was accumulating in my place. And I, you know, eBay, because eBay was not available outside of the US back then. So with a couple of friends, we decided to start iBazaar, which was, you know, think about it as the eBay of France of that era. You know, similar to what Felipe was talking about, very much the discovery of the beginning of the internet, discovery of what users wanted. We had no idea what people wanted, so we just observed what people were doing on the platform. We'd read all these listings. I was delighted that the music category, you know, became one of the top categories. I was able to sell my CDs, my unwanted CDs on that category as one of the first sellers on that platform. And then over the years, you know, just the business grew exponentially, and we expanded into 8 other countries. And so for me, that was my first to become an entrepreneur. It was a deeply personal experience by, you know, wanting to rebuild that music collection one step at a time drove me into building iBazaar. And then with Tiro now, you know, obviously many years later, I've always been a huge car enthusiast, and I've always fantasized about being able to drive other people's cars because I always wanted to try, you know, every car I could try. And of course, you know, I do spend quite a bit of money on my own cars, but I couldn't possibly buy every single car in the world. So you know, Turo in many ways fulfills this passion of being able to, you know, to drive. And now we have, you know, more than 850 makes and models. You can literally find anything, anything from $20 a day to $2,000 a day if you want. Fancy. So for me, entrepreneurship has always been an extension of my own personality.
Awesome. I guess maybe as a digging into the marketplaces a bit more, and we can start with Andre. I think, you know, one of the beauties of consumer internet marketplaces is you have two sides of the marketplaces. So you have supply and demand, and often each of those users are kind of different users with different desires. And as a result of that, you have to acquire each of those users differently and use different approaches to acquiring those. I guess, Andre, when you built iBazaar and then also Turo, who did you focus on acquiring first? Was it the supply or the demand? And how have you thought about kind of scaling that over time?
You know, very different experiences, because, you know, the internet changed so much between, you know, the late 1990s when it was at its beginning versus, you know, now. And in many ways, a lot of things have gotten easier. You know, technology has gotten easier. There's so many, as I mentioned, things that we take for granted today, like online payments, like fast shipping, like, you know, easy hosting, like scalable database platforms that don't cost millions of dollars of proprietary databases to put in place. You know, all of those things were lacking quite a bit. As the, you know, the infrastructure of the internet was just coming together, it was still so early. Now a lot of these things in place, and so in many ways a lot of these things are now easier to get done. On the other hand, I think customer acquisition was a lot easier in the late 1990s than what it is today. We took a huge bet with iBazaar shortly after we launched the platform in the fall of 1999. I convinced my co-founders that we should run a national TV marketing campaign. This was at a time when, the penetration of the internet in France was, less than 5% of the population. So it was clearly a foolish idea from our end. You would spend all these dollars, and we'd be able to target, and we target the media of TV, and it's a see with the numbers, it's not a very targeted approach. It's a brand building approach, and it's a sort of a pioneering approach to bring brand out there. We eventually did just that, and we spent a significant portion of money that we raised on our TV campaign that launched in August of 1999. And we went from nowhere to being in the top 3 most visited websites in France in a matter of 2 weeks. And we replicated this across all the different, because back then, just being to do something on the internet was news on its own. And we were in the news because we were the first online marketplace, actually the first internet company, pure player that was on TV advertising its brand. And so, we seized the of this very special that was starting, and we adopted, I think, a pretty aggressive strategy to acquire both supply and demand by building the brand, and it worked beautifully in getting us that brand awareness. And we didn't get out of the top 5 most visited websites for the whole time, and so we were very, very successful back then. Of course, fast forward to 2015 or 2020 or today. Try to do that, and you'll never raise enough money to be able to do that. So that would be a sort of financial to try to build Tiro in the same we built IBIT. In our case here, we were very much measured about our acquisition strategy, because acquisition is so expensive, and oftentimes acquisition, economics are the reason why many e-commerce businesses are unable to scale beyond a certain point. People can scale volume, people can scale revenue, but profitability is a real challenge for e-commerce businesses and marketplace businesses sometimes as well. And it's primarily because of the acquisition nature, the economics of acquisition. So in Tiro's case, we really focused on driving supply first, because we thought that supply was where the most to prove. We knew there was going to be demand for cars. The car rental industry, exists. It's a 90 billion plus global industry. We know people need cars for travel, for other purposes. So we were not to track demand. On the supply side, however, the pioneering nature of Tiro, we were the first to come out and say to people, hey, you can earn money with your car. Your car is currently sitting in your driveway. It's collecting dust and losing its value and costing you fixed costs on a monthly basis. You can actually start earning money with your car. And we've pioneered this idea, and it's a new idea. No one even thought of delivering such a benefit to car owners before Tiro. But the big question for us was, will people do this? There's just no proven model before us that would act. So very much we did some crazy things in the beginning to bring the first few cars on the platform in order to get going. A lot of unscalable things. And then, over time, we started building the channels, and of course, you got to keep the marketplace balanced. So you can't just build supply for a year and not do anything on demand. So you got to work on both. But we focused on supply because supply was the area where we needed to pioneer the most.
Magnus, it'd be interesting to hear perspective if you focused on kind of supply and demand, which you focused on initially. understanding that you focused initially on the corporate.
Yeah, I think
corporate end.
this is an interesting topic, right? So how do you build a marketplace? And I think, first of all, in my mind, I have pretty strong views on this, and I think we have them still in Careem 8 years later, that a customer typically they're not looking for a marketplace. They're looking for a service. Like, I want the service, right? I want a car. They don't want to have a website where they can find people that might offer you a car and then don't know what's happening. They want, they want the service. So we made the choice from the beginning that we were a service provider. We were not just a matchmaker. And that's a huge difference in my mind, right? And I think particularly in emerging markets where, service quality tends to be still a little bit humble, at least, 8-9 years ago. So people really wanted to have that trusted brand, trusted that the service would, basically that the car would show up and he would know where to take you. So for us, when we launched Careem, you book with Careem, you ride with Careem, you pay to Careem, you complain to Careem, and for all effective purposes, you are dealing with Careem as a customer. The fact that we worked with multiple different captains, many of them worked for different limo companies, and this was a marketplace. The customer, the customer doesn't care about that, right? So I think that's the first principle that, and still today, for example, as we have expanded now into becoming a super app and offering multiple service to our customers, we don't believe that just having any random service on the app is providing any value for customers. Like a pure discovery or matchmaking, I think has limited value. I think you need to be able to ensure quality of what you're offering. And if you're operating across multiple verticals, you need to do that in all verticals, because any bad experience anywhere will tarnish your brand and the reputation and the trust. Now, when we started Careem, one thing that we started with was that most of these corporate business travelers, they don't wake up right now and say, I want a car right now, but they know that I have a meeting tomorrow morning, or I'm going to the airport on Tuesday at 7 a.m. So they pre-schedule their bookings. And when you start a marketplace, it's obviously very tricky. What's the chicken and egg? And you need to have liquidity and you need to match. And for us, the fact that we had pre-bookings, and we only had pre-bookings for the first 6 months or so, was helpful, because people made a booking and we told them you need to book at least 2 hours in advance. You need to give us 2 hours heads up, basically. And then we had at least 2 hours to scramble and do whatever we had to do to find a car. That could mean calling every person we knew that had a car. It could mean calling a hotel, borrowing the hotel car, stopping a car on the street, going one of ourselves to drive if we couldn't find enough captains. We did whatever it took. We made sure that every single booking we had, we fulfilled. I mean, one time I even had to call my wife, who was out in the mall with my 2-year-old daughter at the time, and told her, put her in Starbucks and go and pick up this customer, because we're not going to drop this trip, right? So I think for sure we had to solve for supply first, and I think there are tricks to do it that makes it a little bit less expensive. One is what I just described, that we basically shape the demand a little bit, in our case by making pre-bookings, because the alternative model, if you had a lot of money, we did not have a lot of money when we started. We were super bootstrapped. But we had some well-funded competitors, and their model was, let's secure supply by book, 100 cars across the city. We pay them whether they get business or not, so that they're just ready to go at any minute, right? And that's, of course, a very convenient model if you can afford to do that. But I think those days are a little bit behind us. So for people that are starting new businesses today and in new verticals, I think it is about supply, and it's about you have to deliver every single time. If you screw up once, why would people ever come back and try again, right? So I think these were our experiences.
Okay. On our side, we are a 3-sided marketplace. So we have the assortment, the couriers, and the users. So for us, it's very important that we get the assortment. Like we focus zone by zone, and we try to get density in each zone. So what that means is, like, get the right restaurants, get the right supermarkets, get the right assortment. So there's actually content in the app. After you have that, you have to sort of guarantee the supply, and I agree 100% with Magnus on the service side of the equation. And once you have that, you start pouring in acquisition and users for them to experience an amazing service and start that flywheel that grows and grows and grows until like the things start improving by themselves. So like more assortment brings like more users, which has more orders for couriers, more utilization, etc. And the flywheel grows and grows and grows. And then you replicate in another zone and replicate, and that's how it's super important for us that we get that flywheel going, and we have to do whatever it takes. And I agree with Magnus, who always also did crazy things at the beginning, where we just like got like a megaphone in the office and said like, everybody go out and deliver orders, because this I don't know, this campaigning growth got a little bit oversubscribed and we have to deliver. So yeah, you have to make sure that the marketplace is balanced. But I think what I would like to add is focus on that flywheel. It's moving, and once you have that inertia, you have to scale, making sure that it's a healthy flywheel.
Awesome. And I think, you know, what you've described, what a lot of people point to as an interesting dynamic in marketplaces are network effects. So the more supply drives more inventory, which drives more consumer options, and more consumers come to the platform, which drives more supply and which drives more inventory. So one side of the marketplace can effectively drive growth on the other side. I guess as a follow-up there, on a more practical level, when did you witness the network effects kind of taking effect, and how did that exhibit itself in either metrics or consumer behavior? Yeah.
Jump in. We watched a lot of metrics, the health of the marketplace, and you know, we point to understand, you know, how this is evolving. That's one of the things that but you know, business is, you know, there's this wealth of data, like the customer feedback, the qualitative feedback and behavior. You add on top of that the quantitative data, and you know, you can really get a where the issues are. So we've developed very early on a very analytical view of business, and we've tracked, you know, we built in tracking across the platform in the early days to ensure that we were on top. And that we looked at key metrics from the beginning. For us were conversion, and from, you know, a visit or a search into a booking. This is on sort of the guest side or the consumer side of our marketplace. And then on the host side or the supplier side of the marketplace, convert, you know, creating a host account to having a you know, generating vehicle. So we've tracked conversion on both sides. We've as we developed the business and we had some more you know, months and years of operations, we are looking not just at conversion on a moment, but we've looked at it on a cohort basis. A cohort, as I'm sure many folks in the audience know, is a you know, a user, whether a guest or a host, in our case, who's at a certain point in watch their behavior, they use the platform for many years, and we see effect happening when we see those cohort curves getting better. We see, hosts earning more money. We see guests rising across the marketplace, and in particular, kind of in the areas where, in the geographies that we're focusing on. And so those would be the high level kind of quantitative views of the network effect. The qualitative view as well for us was in our marketplace, guests becoming hosts and hosts becoming guests. We have a lot of that dual usage on our marketplace because anyone can a guest and a host on Turo. It's not necessarily a job for the vast majority of our hosts. Way to earn money with their vehicles, so anyone can be a consumer, both a host and a guest, and we find that that network effect tends to grow faster when we have more hosts becoming guests and vice versa. And so we've tracked a particular metric over the years, and that's another view of the network effect in our business.
Okay, I'll go. I think on our side is very well into what Andre said. Very focused approach, like on the input metrics of the value prop of each of the agents. So for couriers, it's very important to make sure that they have an awesome experience. They earn their money, they have less financial stress, good support from customer service, users, good assortment, great quality of service, low delivery times, etc. And for partners, for making sure that they have tools for them to grow, to expand their business digitally, sorry, etc. And through those, very focused on the value prop of each of the agents, plus this flywheel of making sure that it's moving. It's a good way, or a good strategy to make sure that the marketplace is giving value to everybody. And I guess adding on the service, which there was a question in the chat for Magnus, but I'm gonna steal the thunder there. Is I think, like, I remember this tweet from Paul Graham from Y Combinator, which is stuck in my mind forever, which is the only power that a young startup has, or a young company has, is to wow their customers. You don't have financial power, you don't have, I don't know, scale, you don't have anything. The only thing you can do is just wow your customers. That be a courier, a restaurant, or a user, and that will itself like fund the growth of the company. So I think having an awesome service, and awesome support, and awesome input metrics for all of the agents is, I think, the most, I think, cliche but important thing to do.
Yeah, if I should comment on this one quickly on network effect. Again, there's two sides of the marketplace. If you go back to when we started Careem in 2012, these limousine cars, the black cars that we were using, the licensed cars, if you found one of them parked outside a hotel or outside the mall and you asked him, hey, just take me around the corner, he would say, okay, fine, it's 100 dirhams, which is basically $27, right? Because this captain, he would get 4 to 5 of these a day, and he needed to make 500 dirhams a day. So, he needed to charge you $27 to just go around the corner. Today, our minimum price, so basically, essentially, his minimum price was 100 dirhams. Let's keep it in dirhams for simplicity. Today, our minimum is around like 16 dirhams. So it's basically less than 20% from what it was. And that's clearly an effect of network effect. You need to sort of get utilization up, and then you can bring prices down. And like Felipe said earlier, this all happens in a microcosmos. So you need to solve that problem locally, like zone by zone, neighborhood by neighborhood, because it doesn't matter if you have a lot of cars parked in one part of the city if all the demand is happening somewhere else. And that's sort of part of the interesting challenges to building this business. And on the other side, on the customer side, the biggest shift we saw was, as I mentioned, when we started, customers were primarily pre-booking cars. And why do people pre-book cars? Because they want to make sure that the cars show up on time, right? You have a flight at 6 in the morning, and you pre-book a car for 5:30 because you don't want to take a risk that you open the app and you try to book a car and there is no cars, right? So you pre-book. But as liquidity in the marketplace increased and we got more and more reliable also for on-demand services, and the real turning point happened for us is that when you could get the car reliably within 5 minutes, any time of the day you open the app, you can get a car within 5 minutes. That's magic. People are just like, hey, I'm never gonna book anything more in my life because I know I can just open the app and get the car in 5 minutes. And that's when the sort of the on-demand services just completely took off. So that was a big sort of inflection point for us.
Great. Well, I think we are running out of time or have gone over time at this point. And there were a bunch of questions that we couldn't get to in the chat. So apologies for that. I guess maybe kind of a one sentence takeaway from each person. I think it would be remiss if we, with all this brain power on the stage, didn't ask for a piece of advice for aspiring entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs, either in the region or elsewhere. What would you leave them with?
Just one. Being part of a marketplace 20 years, different marketplace businesses for over 20 years, I think is incredibly satisfying. I can't see myself, being part of a more business anymore. The unique part of, I think, building a platform marketplace is the opportunity to create economic empowerment to people. A chance to talk a lot about that, although it was something that I think all of us have talked about, whether it's the couriers or the captains or the hosts. I think it's very inspiring, to provide economic opportunity for people that might be left behind or people that may not have the same access to opportunities that others do. And I personally find that to be reasons why years later, I continue to be super passionate about building marketplace businesses.
And I'll go. I think on my advice would be like two advice. Focus a lot on your customers. Have a culture inside the company to be humble about what the customer wants, be it a restaurant, a courier, or a user in our case, or whatever the sides of your marketplace are. But I guess the other advice, which is super important and it's super cliche as well, I think, is surround yourself with the best people you know. And you always hear this like in conferences and everything, but I try to make it practical. Like, you always have this friend that she or he is at a great job, making a lot of money. You will really admire her in college. You have to get her to join your company and quit that job to make sure that you're actually building something worth it. And that if you put it in that and you shoot for that in terms of quality of people in your startup, when you hit a problem, which you're going to hit a lot of them, and I'm sure you guys can also say a lot of like, oh my God, we're going to die moments, or oh my God, how are we going to solve this moment? If you're surrounded by the best people, you're going to find a solution. And I think that's super, super, super important. Yeah, that's it.
So I think I share a lot of the views of Andre and Felipe on this one. I had three sort of general advice. The first one to sort of aspiring entrepreneurs. The first one is do something purposeful, something meaningful, something you really care about. And if you're looking for a job, then this is not this is not a job. There's easier way to make a living if that's what you're after, right? But if you want to wake up every day and feel that you are doing something to change the world because you really care about it, and the passion that will bring, the energy that will bring, and you will be able to sort of move mountains if that is truly what you care about. But so find a purpose and anchor yourself in a purpose. Like why are you doing this? And the second advice is also about people, like Felipe, you said. Starting from picking co-founders to hiring people, we have this motto in Careem that we want to have missionaries. We don't want to have mercenaries. So we have always actually paid below market salaries. We were quite generous with equity, but the whole point was that if you're going to just look for making a good income, then please go somewhere else. We don't want you here. But if you want to build something for the long run, if you want to make the region better, and you want to get rich while doing it, but over the long run, then please come join us. But there will be more painful days than great days. So having people that are both super talented but also humble and that believe in the purpose, which was point one, that will make it make all the difference. So you can't be successful without having amazing people. And then the third piece of advice would be to be crazy, really crazy. And I think crazy about two things in particular. Be crazy about speed. From the day that we said, let's build Careem, till the day we took the first trip and charged the customer was 6 weeks. At that time, everything was scrappy. We had a website, but on the back end, it was sort of me and Mudassir who took turns sleeping with the phone, making bookings, sending SMSs. Your car is on the way. It looked professional, but it was us hacking it on the phone. You have to run fast, super fast. So be crazy about speed. And the other one we talked about is be crazy about the customer. Do whatever it takes to make your customers love you, whatever it takes, and listen to them. Like if you have to go over to their houses, which we have done with the dates and flowers because you screwed up a trip, whatever it takes. If you need to send your old mom or grandma or dad or whoever to pick up a customer or do a delivery, that's what it takes. Nothing is below you and beneath you, and just be crazy, really crazy. So I think that's it for me. I think we might have lost Mo in the process.
Mo,
Maybe
his internet died. He's trying to log on, but
okay, so maybe we lost. Maybe Tawfiq is coming in instead.
Hey, everyone, stepping in for the emergencies. But what a panel! Yeah. Thank you very much. I don't know if you were wrapping it up. I was on another session. Yeah. But I saw Magnus speaking, Felipe and Andre. Did you guys wrap it up, or do you want to?
Yeah, we just did
You did your final
timing, Tawfiq.
Awesome. Well, I really just want to say thank you, for joining us at Techwadi this year. Thank you for the audience and for the amazing questions. We have three of I'd say the most incredible minds in this tech space and of our time, and having them on screen here sharing their thoughts. It's just incredible. Thanks to Hopin, and Johnny, founder of Hopin, is on the main stage as well. So feel free to jump on there and ask him a few questions too. Felipe, Andre, and Magnus, thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Awesome.
Nice chatting with you guys.